Hi, my name's Garen Gardner, and today we're in San Francisco at the World Press event, and we're going to talk a little bit about Inventor, some of the new enhancements. Three of the main things that I'm talking about today are large assemblies, some of our new sheet metal enhancements, and then also being able to do some additional tools with our Drawing Manager tools. So let's take a look at some of the large assembly capabilities. You'll notice first off that we're loading up an assembly that has about 340 components. However, we can lighten this up quite a bit. If we just want to load it up, we want to take a look at what the design looks like, but maybe we don't want to dynamically load every component in my assembly. Well, in this case, I can substitute a lot of these components for one or two particular components. So you'll notice that I basically have broken each of these down to a couple of different components, and now I only have four parts into my assembly. So this allows us to really create huge assemblies and be able to take advantage of a lot of the power behind Inventor. Now you may wonder how we're able to accomplish some of these things. The first thing that we'll do, we'll take a look at the front polishing heads, and we want to be able to simplify those. So we'll actually grab that front assembly and take a look at it. Now in this particular front assembly has about 218 components in it, and we want to drop it down to about half the amount of components that belong to this assembly. So let's just open it up in its own window. You'll notice that we have each of these polishing heads, and these are really the area that we want to simplify or reduce some of the overhead. So with this particular component, I can simply come in, create a new substitute. Now I have a couple of different options. I can create a new part manually and swap it in, or I can let the system help me out and simplify this particular design. So you'll notice as I'm doing this down at the bottom, we've removed 18 or 32 components down to one, and then this being an occurrence of 3, we can actually remove about 100 components in my assembly just by making a real quick substitute for this part. Now from a high level, it doesn't really change my design at all. I still have the same weight, the same information in my assembly, but I'm able to easily come in and load up this assembly with a lighter weight representation. So you'll notice as I dynamically remove some of this from memory, we'll see it go down to 188 components from 218, and then we'll just do the same thing on each of the other occurrences. You can see it drop down to 156, and then finally we can do it with our third one, and we'll drop down to about 124. So we started out with 218 components, we're down to 124. So you can imagine opening this up with half the amount of the components, we can do a lot more with it. And imagine this on a grand scale, maybe a shop floor that has hundreds of machines. You're trying to see how they all work together. You could substitute each of the machines and really lighten it up. So one of the other areas that we've added some nice enhancements is the ability in the Drawing Manager to really create more complex, detailed drawings. And many of our customers are wanting to be able to simplify. They've wanted to take something like this particular view and crop out some of the information. So you'll notice that we have a crop tool, and I can just window around the area of information that I want to keep and have it crop everything else out that I'm not really that interested in. I also may want to see what the center of gravity of this particular design is. So oftentimes you want to be able to create various center of gravity points and dimension to them. So one of the things that we did in Inventor 2009 is added the ability to turn on a center of gravity. So not only can we see this in the actual 3D model, but we can dimension to it in the 2D drawing. This is completely associative, so as my 3D model changes, it'll update my dimensions, telling me where the center of gravity is for this particular component. And then finally, one of the other enhancements that we have in the drawing environment is being able to really clean up your parts list based on how you want it to look. Many of our customers used AutoCAD in the past to do a lot of their parts list, and it was a very manual, laborious process. Through Inventor, this is a much faster process. However, it's oftentimes necessary to really simplify or clean up what's in the parts list for any given view. In this case, we can go into some of our filtering tools, and we can just tell it that we don't necessarily want to see any standard parts, so these would be nuts, bolts, or washers in my parts list. We may want to put that off on another sheet shortly. And we also want to only see various components that are in my working components. So these are all the actuators and all the working components of my design. And we're going to add those. So I can have multiple things go into my filter. You'll notice that it drops down my parts list by about half. So I'm really able to easily filter out the components that I only want in my design and be able to really simplify this particular design.